Lina, and I am your moderator for today's MAP webinar on Diversity and Inclusion Agenda. Does it matter during the pandemic? Please settle down comfortably. We will now begin our program. May I request everyone to pause and bow our heads for a short prayer. Our most merciful God, we come to you in our weakness. We come to you in our fear. We come to you with trust. For you alone, our hope. We place before you the disease present in our world. We turn to you in our time of need. Bring wisdom to doctors, give understanding to scientists, and endow caregivers with compassion and generosity. Bring healing to those who are ill. Protect those who are most at risk. Give comfort to those who have lost a loved one. Welcome those who have died into your eternal home. Stabilize our communities. Unite us in our compassion. Remove all fear from our hearts. Fill us with confidence in your care. Amen. Let us now place our right hand on our chest and let us all sing the Philippine National Anthem. Thank you. At this point, may I request the president of MAP, who is the senior partner and ExCom member of ACRA Law, Attorney Francis Lim, to deliver his welcome remarks.
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead, Francis.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you very much, Donna. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the MAP Board of Governors and the MAP Diversity and Inclusion Committee, I welcome all of you to this webinar on Diversity and Inclusion Agenda. Does it matter during the pandemic? Many thanks to our speakers, EON Chair and CEO JUNIE DEL MUNDO, I see him here, P&A Grant Thornton Chair and CEO Marivic ESPAñO, and Accenture Country Managing Director Lito TAYAG, for agreeing to speak before us this morning. Let me also thank the MAP Diversity and Inclusion Committee, chaired by Lito, with Donna as Vice Chair and Marivic as Governor in Charge, and our staff led by Arnold for putting together this webinar. Today's webinar is part of the MAP Diversity and Inclusion Committee's programs on awareness and visibility. Through this new committee, the Management Association of the Philippines aims to generate members' interest and awareness in diversity-related laws, issues, policies, and practices. Specifically, this forum will answer questions pertaining to women, PWD, and sexual orientation. At a later date, the committee will also tackle other diversity issues pertaining to cultural background, religious and spiritual beliefs, among others. Today's webinar aims to answer questions like, number one, what is diversity inclusion mean? What does it really mean? Does it mean that a business must hire an ex-convict, a job applicant had just been released from the National Mental Penitentiary, or even an applicant who has terroristic tendencies? Does it mean that DNI compels a company to hire a highly qualified job applicant, for example, a Wharton or Harvard graduate who is the son or daughter of the head of Abu Sayyaf? So to my mind, what does DNI really mean? Do DNI really matter in business? Why should businesses care about them? Is it a business imperative? Or is it only a nice to have tag for a company? Is there empirical evidence that companies adhering to DNI perform better than companies that do not? Where is the Philippines in terms of DNI? What role should DNI play in the new normal? What are the best practices in handling DNI issues pertaining to women, disabled persons, and persons with particular sexual orientation? I understand that there are about more than 100 participants registrants for this webinar, and many are expected to watch this webinar also via Facebook live streaming. For the benefit of our guests and members who are participating for the first time, MAP has conducted around 30 webinars, either alone or in conjunction with other business groups since the ECQ started 3 months ago. We have forthcoming webinars, among which are empowering MSMEs in the new normal with digital financial tools and efficient delivery of government aid through digital disbursements. Please watch out for announcements of these webinars as they may be of help to you and your businesses. In closing, thank you one and all for attending this webinar. Keep well, everyone, and enjoy the webinar. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you, Francis. Some reminders, please, before we start the presentation and the discussions. I just want to emphasize the following important house rules. As participants for this webinar, we would like to inform you that you are automatically muted and your camera video was also automatically off. For those participating via Zoom, please submit your questions through the Q&A button that you see on your screen. For those watching via Facebook Live, you may post your question like what you do when you post your comments. With the assistance of our MAP Secretariat, I will read the questions on your behalf. For your information, you will only be able to see the speakers, but you will not be able to view the other participants. And lastly, in case you lose connection, please join again by repeating exactly what you did earlier in logging in. At this point, we will have some exercises for our health and safety. You can actually do these daily. So together with our speakers here, let us all take 3 deep breaths. Okay, very easy. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, now we raise our shoulders, especially those who are working from home. We do 2 sets of 10 counts. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's great for those who work from home. Another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then our third exercise, we rotate our shoulders first forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and last. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So ideally, these are 10 sets, but in the interest of time, we will only do 2 of each. I hope you have been energized with these exercises. You can do this like once a day or twice a day when you feel that you need to stretch your shoulders and your back. So thank you to our speakers for being so game to joining these exercises. Before we call on our first speaker, let us flash our first poll question for today to determine the profile of our participants. For those participating via Zoom, may we please request you to answer the following first poll question. Do you have a formal or organized LGBT community in your organization? You may answer yes or no and then submit. And we will show the results after the first speaker's presentation. In line with the MAP policy, we will dispense with a lengthy introduction of our speakers. I would like to remind our 3 speakers that you are given 12 to 15 minutes for your respective presentations. Repeat, 12 to 15 minutes, please. May I now call on our first speaker, the Chair and CEO of the EON Group. Please welcome Mr. JUNIE DEL Mundo.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be here to talk to you about the relevance of diversity and inclusion in these trying times and how organizations like ours can leverage on them. But before that, allow me to introduce the company that I represent. The EON Group is an integrated marketing communications consultancy that has been around for over 2 decades. And we are proud of the journey we have taken in all these years, from a small Makati-based office to becoming the only Filipino communications firm to be recognized in the global top 250 PR firms and the first to open up shop in the UAE. Our business is to build, strengthen, and grow the reputation of our clients to ultimately earn trust among their stakeholders. The values of diversity and inclusion have always been embedded in our history and company culture. We have always endeavored to foster an environment that encourages everyone to be themselves. We maintain a relaxed dress policy and a gender-blind recruitment process. We pushed this advocacy even further in recent years by being the first Philippine-owned, Philippine-based company to be a member of the Philippine Financial Inter-Industry Pride, an organization dedicated to promoting safe and inclusive workspaces. This morning, I'll be talking to you about diversity and inclusion from our perspective as storytellers and marketers, and why this matters more than ever in the face of a pandemic. The impact of this pandemic has led us to contend with 2 kinds of crisis right now. The first and more obvious to all of us is the economic crisis. The pandemic continues to take its toll with disrupted operations and supply chains, and the imposition of the 2-month-long ECQ and travel bans resulted in a major hit to sectors that drive our economy, such as tourism and hospitality. But what I will be focusing on this afternoon is the second. COVID-19 has exposed a human crisis that has been attacking societies at its core. New behaviors and expectations from our customers, our employees, and all our stakeholders are emerging. And organizations need to understand this in order to make it through the other side of this pandemic. COVID-19 has completely eroded our modern notion of normalcy. Most people are on an alert mode. As stress and anxiety levels heightened with concerns about their health and well-being, as well that of their loved ones. The economic effects of COVID-19 has also driven pay cuts, furloughs, and layoffs in organizations across industries, leading people to worry about their income security. Even the transition to work from home setups has required a massive adjustment and support that goes beyond technical provisions, with struggles of effectively managing teams remotely, resolving inevitable conflicts, and measuring productivity in the time of a pandemic. Organizations need to acknowledge both crises. Otherwise, they risk exacerbating the other. The importance of diversity and inclusion is only further underscored, especially at a time when the public now demands more accountability from the private sector. The public's expectations on the private sector taking accountability is no new thing. In our 2019 Philippine Trust Index, EON's biennial proprietary research, the top drivers of trust in business show one thing in common: human welfare. This means that Filipinos place greater trust in businesses that look after their customers, communities in need, and most importantly, their employees. The trust driver does not discriminate employees based on race, gender, and religion, rose up to the third spot last year. This means that Filipinos are placing even greater importance on diversity and inclusion. This takeaway resonated in two other studies we conducted back in 2018. We found that Filipino centennials, or Gen Z, hold a greater affinity for brands who embody values that reflect their ideal worlds. These are brands who respect and communicate diversity. Even more recently, we conducted a survey with our mobile partner to get a top-line look at Filipino sentiments on COVID-19. 93.3% indicated that it was important to see the help extended by brands and companies during the pandemic, while 42.8% of the respondents answered that the private sector is not doing enough to help COVID-19. The responsibility to fight the pandemic and protect the public not only falls on the government or health organizations, but also on the private sector. Furthering our D&I agenda is not just the way for us to demonstrate our accountability to our public, but this will also help solve the key challenges we face amid COVID-19 in the following ways. First, solving the economic challenges entails leveraging on diversity at the table. Bringing D&I to the boardroom helps organizations better understand multicultural stakeholders at all levels and give businesses a better grasp at the specific changing needs of consumers today. Second, D&I is essential in crisis communication. Organizations need to understand that different sets of their consumers and employee populations are impacted by COVID in drastically different ways. Some employees may only encounter minor inconveniences with work from home setup, while others, such as working parents, will need to deal with major adjustments to their schedules as they balance work while taking on remote learning roles for their children. Some customers will expect assurance that their favorite brands are maintaining business as usual, while others are looking for signals that businesses are adapting to the crisis with their customers' safety in mind. The leaders at the front lines of our crisis need to fully understand the nuances of our stakeholders' various needs in order to deliver effective, informative, and genuine messages that can build and grow affinity with our brands. D&I is important because ultimately our long-term survival and success entails focusing on a broader set of stakeholders. Businesses who don't address the economic challenges they face will have more to lose than they did 3 months ago. The people crisis is subsequently a D&I crisis. Companies who don't solve these issues won't survive. Now that we've established the importance of D&I, especially in the time of a pandemic, how can organizations take action to continue and promote D&I during COVID-19? Let me start by reminding everyone that we all have a platform to use to promote D&I, express our stance on key issues, spread messages of solidarity, and guide our audiences towards a more inclusive society. Allow me to share with you a few tips for continuing D&I work through our platforms. In time of social distancing, digital and social media have become even more effective avenues for us to share information with our audiences. We can use our web pages not only to express our stand on key issues, but to enlighten our audiences on their importance. A powerful example of this is Nike's Don't Do It video, which urges its audience to speak up against racism. How come no music? This video, reversing Nike's famous "Just Do It" tagline, amplified the brand's message of speaking out against racism, inspiring action and solidarity among the millions in its fan base. A more recent local example is the rise of the EHACOM movement, which took over Twitter a few weeks ago as social media users condemned the thinking that women's outfits are to blame for sexual assault. Brands can play an important role in amplifying the message of this movement by using their platforms to educate and influence their audiences. Second, continue communicating D&I within the company by practicing empathy and sensitivity to the individual situations of employees. Take time to understand how the pandemic is affecting our employees' lives and well-being through a dialogue with them and act on those needs accordingly. The examples that I'm sharing with you are a few efforts that we've done at home. Since the start of ECQ, we have been sending out regular communications with our employees on ways to cope during the pandemic. These range from practical tips to ensure health and safety during COVID-19 to a mental health webinar with a professional from one of our partner organizations. This effort stemmed from casual conversations with our teams to understand what they needed at the time. In order for us to ultimately convey messages of diversity and inclusion, we have to start with ourselves by finding ways to challenge and address our own prejudices and unconscious biases as they hinder effective communication. My last tip on what you do best. My last tip is to focus on what you do best. We need to harness our creativity and resilience as Filipinos to come out of this crisis even stronger. This is a pivotal time to go back to your organization's core purpose, key strengths and offerings, and channel that into messages and efforts that show how you create value, help those in need, or take part in ending the pandemic. We at EON, for example, have been activating our CSR and advocacy efforts through the EON Foundation. With the Foundation's commitment to help every Filipino reach their full potential, we continue to use our strength in storytelling and relationship building to make sure everyone's voice is heard. In doing so, we remain honest about our strengths and use them deliberately towards enabling positive change that help us all. Now more than ever, organizations have an important role to play as enablers. Not only must we convey our positions as corporate citizens, we must make our actions and resolutions speak for themselves. Allow me to close this brief presentation by telling everyone that our work on diversity and inclusion will never end. It continues to evolve just as our conditions evolve. We must admit that D&I is a moving target, and our work will never really be done. There will always be something new to learn and act on, based on the ever-changing needs of our stakeholders. An organization that has internalized acceptance may soon advocate greater representation and later on establish regulations and policies as new behaviors emerge. This is why it's important to continuously monitor our own organization's D&I health and assess what adjustments need to be made accordingly. As we all face this pandemic, we acknowledge that only is there no playbook for D&I in our specific situation, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So I call on everyone to open their minds, to be creative in coming up with solutions that work for their context, and have the courage to try them out. There is no blueprint for advocating D&I during the pandemic. So let us create one that works for us. I hope the information I shared will be useful to you and your companies as we navigate through this crisis with diversity and inclusion, filling up one of the fundamental chapters in our leadership playbook. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Junie, for the presentation. Now let's see the results of our first poll question. Do you have a formal or organized LGBT community in your organization? 17% said yes, while 83% said no. Out of, that's 39 and plus 8. Okay, at this point, may we please request those participating via Zoom to answer the following second poll questions. What is your corporate target in terms of women employees? Number 1, 40% of total workforce. Number 2, 50%. Number 3, 60%. Number 4, 70%. Or number 5, no specific target. May I call on our second speaker? Please welcome the Chair and CEO of the P&A Grant Thornton, Ms. Marivic ESPAÑO.
Hi, Donna. Okay, let me share my slide. Can you see it now?
Can we have it on slide view?
Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, Marivic, can we have that bigger, please?
Okay, sure. Oops. Okay, there you go. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
That's good.
It's back. We need a slideshow, please.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, there. Is it okay now?
Yes, that's great.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, colleagues in MAP and guests who are joining us this morning in this particular webinar. I've been asked to present this morning my views on the relevance of diversity and inclusion, specifically gender diversity, during this time when we are experiencing the consequences of an economic slowdown due to COVID-19. You know, some may argue that at this particular time, where not only the Philippines is affected, but all economies in the world are affected, it might not be the time to discuss workplace diversity and inclusion, since there are more pressing issues facing our world. I would like to present a case to put forward that this moment is precisely the right time to recognize the importance of diversity. Now, but first of all, why is gender diversity important? It is a business proposition because that must be pursued at all times. We are in a crisis or not. First of all, equality between women and men should be a fundamental value. It is about fairness. From a business standpoint, several studies have already established the clear link between a company's performance and gender diversity. One reason is that diversity brings together varied perspectives, produces a more holistic analysis of the issues the company faces, and therefore stimulates greater effort, which leads to improved decision making. We are all aware of the danger of group thinking, and diversity simply leads to a better decision in business because it opens up, you know, the opportunity for different thinking and acting differently. Moreover, diverse teams benefit from connections to a wider network and therefore increase the legitimacy among the business stakeholders. Finally, from the perspective of nation building, gender equality is also recognized by our government as a driver for economic growth. Based on the 2019 survey of the Philippine Statistics Office, the functional literacy of women is higher than men. The numbers show that women are increasingly highly educated than men. This is based on statistics. About 22% of women have completed at least college degrees compared to men, which is 80%. So you could just imagine the potential if we can fully tap this rich resource that we have in the country. Now, recent studies of Grant Thornton, the latest one was in 2019, does show that the Philippines recognize this potential. In this particular study, you would see that globally, the percentage of business with at least one woman in senior management position has risen to 87%. Conversely, this means that only 13% of companies covered by the survey had no female in senior leadership positions. Now, if you look at Asia, the percentage is higher than the global rate. It's 91%. And Philippines has 95%. So only 5 of those companies surveyed did not have a female in senior leadership positions. Now, another question that was analyzed was for those companies that have women in senior roles, senior leadership roles, what percentage are women? Globally, it's 29%. If you look at the Philippines, that's 43%. And in fact, in that particular survey, we rank first among the countries that has the biggest percentage of women in senior leadership roles. Now, if you look at further the data, you would see that it did not just happen overnight. The Philippines has really been doing quite well in terms of the proportion of women in senior management roles. The thing though is that the positions held by these women are I would say the traditional ones, the roles that women have been known to be quite good at. So that would be the CFO and probably the human resources position. Some areas like marketing, sales, and technology, the percentage is lower. When we look at the CEO role, the percentage, the global percentage falls down to only just 15%. And the Philippines is following more or less the same trend. Now, in that particular study, they asked both men and women what they think are the factors affecting their professional progress in their careers. And if you look at this table, you would see that the most significant one, the variances, you would see the lack of access to development of work opportunities. More women felt that is a significant factor, 27% compared to men. Access to networking opportunities. Women feel that they don't have this, so 23% versus men, which is 30%. And then thirdly, carrying responsibilities outside of work. Women feel that this is a significant consideration for them. Now, one may ask, has the situation changed because of the pandemic? Over the past 3 months and until now, most employees are working from home. And even from the survey that we conducted among our employees, there is an agreement that the line separating work and family has become dull. Mas lalong naging mahirap yung pag-manage because most families now need to balance work, online education, and entertaining children at home. So before, at least they can go to the office, focus on work. Of course, they have to, even at work, they have to attend to demands of family, but it's not that, I guess, significant. Now, when they're working at home, mas lalong naging intense. No? So in most cases, you would see that the responsibility for homework during lockdown and for childcare rests on the wife. For single women, this covers the responsibility to take care of parents or senior relatives who are, living with them. So if you look at this particular table, pagdating dun sa caring responsibilities, the influence of this particular factor would be heightened. No? On the other hand, since physical distancing is being required during the quarantine period and until now, we see that opportunities for networking, which require actual attendance in events or other activities, will decrease. Today, networking is being done online, and women can participate in those activities more. Unlike the normal environment where networking activities happens in the evening. Similarly, development work opportunities that are usually conducted outside of official working hours may also be less. So most of these activities will happen online using available tools like Zoom, MS Teams, and so on. So this is a good opportunity for women to catch up on development work and networking opportunity. So looking at it from a positive view, therefore, the current situation where most employees are working from home has somehow leveled the playing field, where at the least lessen the advantage men usually have compared to women. The interesting thing is that globally, while it has been recognized that providing flexible working opportunities is the third most common action to be taken by business to support gender diversity, in the Philippines, very few of the companies have actually embraced it. I think we are very quite traditional. We have so many fears in managing activities, but now we can see, but because of the pandemic, we can see that it can actually work with the right technology and support coming from the company. So the pandemic has increased awareness for businesses to embrace technology. And we hope that as we go back, slowly go back to reopening our businesses, companies would embrace it and institute the necessary, tools and systems that would allow women to continue to have flexible work arrangements. Having said that, one must be aware that it's not just simply allowing people to work from home, especially during the pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, the circumstances have changed, and we do need to continue to listen to our employees to understand what their challenges are and reach out to them and get solutions or get recommendations to address specific challenges that they're facing. So I'd like to share briefly what we are doing in P&A Grant Thornton. As a background, for those who are not aware, P&A Grant Thornton is a professional service firm providing audit, tax, accounting, and advisory services. We have more than 1,000 employees in 4 different offices, the biggest of which is in Makati. We have embraced technology in the way we work. So even before past years, all our employees have computer units. 70% are using laptops, 30% have desktops. So when the possibility of the pandemic or of the lockdown became imminent, we advise our people to bring home their computer units and to prepare to work remotely. I'm quite proud to say that except for the administrative employees that we have who need to be physically present in the office to perform their tasks, we were fully operational and we were servicing our clients from different locations. Now, during the quarantine, we continue to communicate with our employees and to connect with them, understand how they are managing under a different environment. And we instituted certain practices, which, some of which were previously done face-to-face, now we're doing them online. Just to share a few, the work from home arrangement, even now, even today that we are in GCQ, because the health and safety of our people is important to us, we are observing social distancing, and we have announced to our employees that only those who need to go to the office must come to the office. We continue to work from home. Now, when we say who must come to the office, so those who need to be physically in the office to do the work, those who need to access documents or submit documents, or those who feel that their work environment at home or wherever they are living in right now is not conducive to working. So like poor internet, or maybe they don't have working space. There is a clear approval system to make sure that the rules are being followed. Timing policy, before we allow people to come in before 10 o'clock for our practice people, meaning our auditors, our CPAs, and so on. Our admin people work in shifts. Today, we relaxed the time-in policy. basically we said that the teams must define what is the appropriate working time for them, the starting time. So some teams would choose 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or even 1 o'clock if that fits them. I think this recognizes the fact that while our people are at home, because they are with their family, there are things that they need to attend to so that they can concentrate on their work. So we allow that to work. You know? For those who come to the office, we told them that you do not have to stay in the office for 8 hours. If you've completed what you're supposed to do in the office, you can go home and continue your work at home. Again, this is recognizing that not everybody has a private transportation, and it's quite difficult to get public transportation nowadays. So we need to allow them adequate time for commute. We also made frequent our discussions with our people. So that involves holding frequent town hall meetings, one-on-one conversation with team members. In the normal days, in the normal environment, I get to see our people, I would say, in 2 occasions. First would be our annual staff meeting. Second would be the Christmas party. But because of the pandemic and using the technology, we've been able to hold group firm-wide meetings more often. The discussions are not really just about work. It covers as well, social activities, getting to ask them how they're feeling, and getting their comments on how we can improve the current environment. Learning opportunities are now online, and knowing that people are quite stressed at the moment because of work, we include topics that are relevant to female participants, such as women empowerment, skincare, stress, and mental health. Coaching, which is part of our culture, has also been continued online. So, as you would appreciate, the current environment is requiring a lot of communication and interaction, and we recognize that our people, especially our managers, need to be equipped on how to deal with the current circumstances. So support likewise to frequent discussions, one-on-one online meetings with them to help them address these issues are being done. Now, you might say that these initiatives are not really specific to any gender or women, and to a certain degree, I would agree with that. However, if you look at it, these activities are really driven by a strong desire to understand our people and the different situations that they are in right now and their varied needs. So by listening to our workforce, more than 50% are women. I believe that these policies indeed support our women employees. To end, allow me to share that we strongly believe that diversity and inclusion must always be a concern for business leaders. At Grant Thornton, we believe that improvements on diversity and inclusion can only be achieved through deliberate action in targeted areas. And we have been following this particular framework in drafting or in formulating our actions. The most important of this, as you would see on the top of this, this diagram, is championing the business case. It is clearly important that an organization has to have a champion on promoting the diversity and inclusion. Your participation in the webinar today is a clear sign that you are the champions of diversity and inclusion in your own respective organization. So maraming salamat, and I hope that your clan will multiply and prosper. Magandang umaga sa inyo lahat.
Donna, you're on mute.
Thank you, Marivic. Thank you, Marivic, for the presentation. Now we go to the results of our second poll question. What is your organization's target in terms of women employees? 40% of total workforce, 3%, 50%, and that's 25%, 60%, that's about 5% replied, and then 70%, it's a total of 3%, and no specific target, that's 65% replied. Okay, thank you for answering that poll. And now may I call on our last speaker. Please welcome the Country Managing Director of Accenture Inc. Philippines, Mr. Lito TAYAG.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. I hope you could hear me. Good morning, everyone. I was deeply inspired by the presentation of Junie and by Marivic on inclusion and diversity. Let me now focus particularly on inclusion for persons with disabilities and put some commentaries and reflections, including the context of the quarantine situation and the COVID pandemic. I will, of course, use our Accenture experience to discuss this topic. Persons with disabilities is an area of diversity that we as a company put focus on. But before I deep dive into PWDs, allow me to set the context. I want to confirm that Accenture creates a workforce for all of its employees that is truly human and truly diverse. And that we sincerely believe that inclusion drives innovation. Let me give a summary of our other inclusion areas before I go into PWDs. On gender diversity, we are very proud that we nurture more women actually to fuel our success at Accenture in the Philippines. Today, we have more than 50%, actually 52% of our more than 55,000 workforce in the country are women. And what is more interesting is that we're able to sustain this all the way to the executive and managing director levels. At the executive level, we have 48% women, and at managing director level, we have 53% women. In fact, Accenture Philippines is the first Accenture geographic unit to achieve level 2 Edge Move certification from the economic dividends for gender equality. And on the sexual orientation side, and like Junie's views, Accenture also proudly supports the LGBT community through various events and trainings that allow for equal opportunities to raise awareness to the general community and to help them express their true selves. Today, we have more than 14,000 LGBTs and allies registered in Accenture in the Philippines. So now let me move to PWDs. Let's look at the setting. In the next slide, will show us the setting for PWDs in the country. This is our landscape. Clearly, we have a long way to go. Based on the recent survey, PWDs unemployment rate is actually double that of the general population. And the last statistic that we got is that there are more than 7,000 PWDs working in the government. However, there are 1.7 million employees in the government sector as of 2019, and that is less than 0.5% compared actually to the 1% that is required by law. That said, especially in the time of COVID, in the next slide, we need to create resilience in the workforce. We need to keep them healthy, safe, and employed. And that includes, and maybe especially, the PWDs. What this means is that we need new operating models to adapt quickly to the situation that we're faced in. We need to continue to support their personal and professional growth. And just as important, we need to stay connected. We have to find ways for our people to stay engaged, including and especially the PWDs. To address this, Accenture in the Philippines is doing several initiatives to create an inclusive workforce for persons with disabilities. We have grouped this into 4 key action items, no? And we call them the 4 E's: employ, engage, empower, and enable. Let me briefly talk about each one of these. The first is, of course, to employ PWDs. We must ensure that persons with disabilities are represented in the workplace. In the Philippines, in fact, Republic Act 10524 calls for equal employment opportunities, stating that no person with disability shall be denied access to gain suitable employment. And in fact, the government is required to employ, as I said, 1% of its total employees as PWDs. For the private sector, 1% is the minimum workforce recommended for PWDs. In Accenture, we put in place various initiatives to hire and to grow the number of PWDs in our company. Today, actually, we're proud that we have more than 4% of our population as self-declared PWDs. And every year, we set and define our target of recruitment. So during recruitment process, we provide the candidate an opportunity to disclose whether they need any specific accommodation or assistance, which would help indicate that the applicant may be a PWD. And if we confirm, instead of turning them down, we plan for the necessary support. And we are now starting to build rooms equipped with accessibility solutions, which I will talk about later, in our recruitment centers to improve PWD hiring. The next one is engage. We engage and respect PWD's abilities, and we recognize the value that they bring to the organization. We ensure that we foster, of course, a work environment where employees with disabilities feel that they belong and where they can advance and thrive. Our annual celebration of International Day of Persons with Disabilities takes place throughout the month of December in more than 20 countries in the Accenture network around the world, with global events open to all employees. Locally, we have established connections with various schools and organizations, such as the Leonard Cheshire Foundation and the De La Salle College of St. Benilde School of Deaf Education and Applied Studies. Our Persons with Disabilities Champions Network, which we call CCAT in the Philippines, counts more than 9,000 members. It sponsors local networking, collaboration, mentoring, and awareness building activities for persons with disabilities. And CCAT, as an organization, has plot out its year-long activities to engage and support our PWDs, including during this time of pandemic. Then we have empower. To ensure that persons with disabilities continue to grow and succeed, we offer reskilling programs, whether this is in their technical skills, in their industry skills, or in their interpersonal and other soft skills. And we are determined that the rest of the Accenture workforce have a deep awareness and they foster inclusion for our PWDs. We are focused on enabling and educating all our employees about working with PWDs through training courses that offer guidance to effectively integrate PWDs in our workplace. For example, we conduct disability sensitivity sessions for all of our employees. And just as important, and I want to emphasize this, is that we adhere to a strict non-discrimination, zero tolerance for harassment, and meritocracy policies within Accenture as we commit to providing the best career opportunities to our employees, especially and particularly the PWDs. Lastly, it is enable. When our executives in one of our groups were hiring a deaf and mute employee, they realized that the way the only way that this new employee was going to succeed was if we supported her with the right technology and the right environment. And so the idea of the Accessibility Center was born. Our office today at the Cybergate in Mandaluyong City houses the suite of accessibility solutions, that's how we call it, which is dedicated to our PWD employees. This dedicated office space was specifically built to house assistive technologies and equipment readily available to all employees with disabilities. Services in this facility are divided into 3 categories, at least that's how we started. First are for the hearing impaired. We have self-developed software to create real-time subtitles for videos together with real-time text translation for video and conference calls. We have more than 40 models of noise cancellation headsets, speakers, noise level meters that employees with hearing impairment can actually choose from that will best suit and address their impairment. For the vision impaired, we have braille stickered keyboards, electronic magnifiers, non-visual desktop access, voice activate technology, and blind sticks. And for the mobility impaired, we have smart lights, sliding doors for easy access, and of course, automated wheelchairs. We are very proud, of course, to say that this center is the first for Accenture globally, and other countries are now following suit. And we also believe it is also the first in the Philippines. I hope you will have the chance to see our Accessibility Center one of these days. But to appreciate the impact of this Accessibility Center for our PWD employees, let us see this short video.
This is a bridge. Bridges span great distances, connect people, and bring us farther than we thought we could go. The Accessibility Center is a bridge that connects our people to technologies that help them be all they can be. It's a proud innovation of Accenture in the Philippines. The first in Accenture, the first in the country, maybe a first of its kind globally. The center provides persons with disabilities with a suite of solutions that empower them to thrive in their work, helping to create a truly diverse and inclusive environment for all. Through next-level collaboration, we have equipped over 600 employees with disabilities with best-fit technologies and 4,100 more with disability prevention technologies.
I felt that it's hard to keep a meeting, but I started talking fast because of my disability. I am grateful I am able to use this helped me keep up a meeting. I can now take calls or buy input and understand what other people are saying.
Usually work in one area, so I have a struggle going around, but with the help of this motorized wheelchair, it will be a big help for me to move around faster.
An effective, sustainable, and replicable innovation that's now empowering employees and their teams in other Accenture geographies and inspiring clients to hire more people with disabilities.
So how do we drive inclusion in Accenture? By bridging the gap between disability and potential.
Improving the work experiences of our employees with disabilities.
And realize their dreams
for themselves and their families.
Of course, our Accessibility Center is open, even during this pandemic, of course, following the required protocols. All of our 4E actions are being continued during the quarantine and are mostly executed remotely. So what else have we learned during this pandemic? Well, 2 things. First, we believe that there are as much, if not greater, opportunities for the PWDs to be employed during this pandemic. And work from home environment can actually be supported and enhanced for PWDs. These are examples, no? In the next slide, these are examples of what we can do under the current circumstances. We revisit our recruitment policies and focus on the vulnerable groups, especially the PWDs. Work from home is just as suited for PWDs, if not more than our regular employees, and we will continue to leverage that. We strengthen our SICAT community, our support for our PWDs with town halls and regular virtual activities. We continue to engage our PWDs and the rest, of course, of our people remotely. And just as we offer mental health support to all of our employees, we offer this as much to our PWDs during this pandemic. We deploy technology solutions, continuous deployment of technology solutions to the homes of our employees. And we continue to build applications and tools, being a technology company for our PWDs, and we roll this out virtually and remotely. And so as we move forward during this difficult situation, we intend to continue to help our PWDs grow and be successful. And we are leveraging our commitment to diversity, and we believe inclusion drives innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lito, for that presentation on inclusion and PWDs. Now let's see the results of our third and last poll question. What is your organization's target in terms of PWDs? The reply, 1% of workforce should be PWDs, that's 2%. 2 to 3%, 12% replied, 4 to 5%, 5% replied, and over 5%, 7% replied, and no specific target yet, 73% replied. So we have a lot to learn from Lito here. So thank you for answering our 3 poll questions. At this point, we will now go to the Q&A. As I mentioned earlier, please submit your questions through the Q&A button. Sorry, but due to time constraints, the webinar participants will not be given the opportunity to speak. So since I am the host, I can start with my own question. For our speakers, a lot mentioned already during the pandemic that most have been doing work from home. But for those who still need their employees to go to work, how did you manage to do that, especially for women, pregnant women who probably need to go to work to the front lines and all the other PWDs? There, any of our speakers can reply.
Maybe I'll start, Donna.
Yes.
Our return to office initiative was very deliberate in terms of both volume, the speed, and the people that we bring back. We didn't want to bring as many, and very specifically for PWDs and for example, the pregnant women, we are deliberately not bringing them back to the office at this point. So I just wanted to, so the approach is deliberate, and it is very selective as well for our people. We believe that since we have been able to prove that work from home is just as productive and effective, we will continue to leverage that until we stabilize and until we, a lot of the risks that are embedded in traveling to the office are actually mitigated.
Okay, thank you, Lito.
Donna, if I may contribute. Well, in our case, as I said, the primary arrangement right now is still work from home. So they only come to the office if they need to because of the work as well. So what we did was really to analyze what are these activities that require people to come to the office. And then secondly, we analyze who can come to the office because we have transportation available. Or they can do carpooling because one of their colleagues who lives in a nearby area can pick them up. So what we also did was to reconfigure activities. So for instance, if only 10 people can come to the office, what we did is that some of the work of these people that come to the office were taken over by people who can report to work. So the work is not interrupted.
In the case of EON, majority of our people are working from home, and we will continue doing that until the end of the year. So those who need to come to the office, and if they don't have their own transportation, we provide shuttle service for them.
Okay. Thank you, Junie. Okay, our next question is coming from Federico Macaranas. D&I has implications on how financial resources are used in firms. Productivity may suffer if training is not provided to all employees. Are firms willing to lower profit margins to ensure D&I in the short term?
I think it is not about the willingness to lower the profits. I think it is about our willingness to make investment on inclusion and diversity. Yeah. That at the end of the day, the return is going to be realized because we sincerely believe that inclusion and diversity drives innovation. So inclusion and diversity allows us access to the talent that we probably will not have if we do not make investments in inclusion and diversity.
Okay, thank you. Our next question from Marivic Año. For Marivic, in our company, management expects that we will still follow our standard work hours, example 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., even if we are working from home. How do we as HR convince management to focus on output, not on time work? This will allow employees to attend to personal matters while still staying productive. Example, parents are able to attend to childcare without compromising work and vice versa.
Well, I think the company has to understand what is important to them. And basically, it's output. It's the deliverable of the employee and not the time that he or she started working. The company must realize that the situation is different. Like in an office where you have, let's say, a 9 o'clock starting time, you see people really coming to the office and sitting on their desks. The reality is that you don't see people, right? So even if you say start work at 9 o'clock, I can put on my computer, but I may not be working. So why force the issue? You're just creating a guilty feeling. Second, there is also a realization that the reality is that since they're at home, there are really demands from family, children, parents, that they need to attend to, even if they're working. But they cannot say that I cannot do that because I'm working. I recall one time during our Q&A town hall meetings, there was a comment that I need to go to the grocery at 10 o'clock because I'm the strongest in the family. My parents are senior citizens and so on. So how can you tell this person not to do it? So, and then thirdly, I think there is also a recognition that our clients are in difficult situations right now. So the availability of information or their availability may be different from what it used to be. So from a business perspective, to us, it doesn't make sense to force people to start at 9 o'clock when the report coming from the client will be arriving at 3 or 5 o'clock. If you do that, you have idle time. That is not really productive. So you might as well face the reality and make adjustments.
Okay, thank you, Marivic. Will Junie and Lito like to contribute to that as well?
In our case, we are really very much output based. We're quite lax when it comes to time. Because we have to realize, as what Marivic said, that people now have certain needs and they work from home. As long as they're online and as long as they are able to attend to their client needs, then we're fine with that. And plus also, in a creative agency like EON, you cannot force people to really sit down on their computers for 8 hours in front of their computers for 8 hours a day. people, like for example, our creative team, they're only productive at night, for example, you know. So as long as they submit their outputs, that's fine with us. But of course, it's a little bit different in, you know, if you are a member of the executive committee, you know, as soon as your eyes open, sabi ko, miskin hindi ka pa nakakasipilyo, nagtatrabaho ka na. O hindi ka, hindi ka pa nakakaligo, nagtatrabaho ka na. So that's the problem. And my own particular problem is, you know, how do I now take a break, you know, because people expect that you are always online and that you will answer all the questions now. Kasi wala kang escape because, you know, you're at home, you are trapped there, and so people expect you to answer at whatever time.
That's correct, Junie. Yeah, Lito was gonna say something.
No, I was just I completely agree with Junie. So the only thing I will add is that I think the work from home precisely proved that issue, no? That we don't see our people when they work from home. So we could only rely by the fact that they're going to be extremely professional, and therefore it can only be measured by their outputs, no, not by the time they spend, because there's no way to check, you know, the time they spend in the office, other than maybe, you know, they can keep their laptops logged on the whole night anyway, and you will know whether they're working or not. So it has to be output based.
Okay, thank you, Lito. And for management, management is more 24/7 during COVID times. Question from Lenlen Messina, UN Women. How are you documenting the impact of the interventions to show success and encourage other companies to follow suit?
Is this for women?
For women, or as mentioned, let's say Lito presented other, I'm guessing, interventions or projects done in the Philippines. I don't know yet how, under law, the only requirement is to have 1% of PWD. So that's how I'm interpreting the question. Or let's say in terms of bottom line, Marivic presented how having women on boards, there are more studies on having women on boards and bottom line. But for others, maybe you can shed light on how it affects the diversity of thought in terms of productivity, if there are actual measures presented.
Can I take a crack on that, Donna? You know,
yes.
We are really a very diverse company, you know, in terms of women, members of the LGBT community, etc. So what is really very important really is the diversity in the thinking. And clients that you service and that you work for and the ones that you intend to actually attract can see the quality of the work that you do. So it's because, you know, different minds, different talents are put into the kind of work that you do. So people, with that, they like the output. And they can see that, they can feel that, you know. And that one is quite infectious. If your clients and your partners will see passion, creativity, a lot of hard work poured into the creation of a particular output or a particular project, then, you know, they will keep on coming back because they know that they will, when they hire you, they will see a high level quality of work. And this is because it's done and made by a diverse group of people with, you know, thinking coming from the left and the right sides of their brains.
Okay. Thank you, Junie, for that. Our next question, for all the speakers, most companies are reducing their employees amid pandemic. Will that be the case to your respective companies?
Not in the case of P&A. We are optimistic that that our clients would need us. They need guidance, they need support at this particular time. So what we are doing currently is training our people so that their skills to better understand our clients can be honed. So no plans to reduce people at this time.
Thank you, Marivic. Okay, I'll proceed to the next question from Elaine Kuncle. Lito, are you finding that some of your PWD's work is being taken over by RPA, AI? How is Accenture handling this upscaling? If so, how successful has this been?
Oh, okay. Thank you for the question. It's not really taking over, but the implementation of artificial intelligence and RPI and taking the existing tasks that we have is true not just for the tasks of the PWDs. That is true for basically all of the tasks that we have. And so I think we need to be comfortable that we, in the future, will continue to work together with machines, with artificial intelligence. No? And in fact, there's a separate study around this on the future of the workforce, we call it, and it says reworking the revolution. There's a revolution going on in terms of how the workforce is being reshaped because of artificial intelligence. Now that said, as I said, the same study confirms that it is not going to be a net negative for jobs. In fact, it is going to be a net positive. But it is important to understand that the nature of the jobs are going to change. And that is where the imperative of us upskilling or even reskilling our people at scale, because the type of jobs that we see today are starting to change because of the impact of artificial intelligence. And therefore, we have to upskill our people and move them into higher value types of jobs. And I think that has to be done not just at the company level, but also at the industry level. And are we successful? The answer is yes, because if we're not successful, we will see a reduction in our headcounts. But so far, we continue to grow. And just as important is that we're able to keep in step with the changes of the nature of the jobs that we see because of the impact of technology and artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Lito. Our next question from George from Panahon TV, our show my colleague also. This is to address another question for Lito. What problems do PWDs encounter in the workplace and how do you manage these concerns?
I think the problems that we see are precisely the reasons why we created our accessibility center. No? And in some cases, for example, hearing impaired, if we do not address that particular impairment for them to become productive, then it is very difficult for them to be successful in their jobs. And that is precisely the reason why we created the Accessibility Center. And as we said, we have some very interesting stories that one person, in fact, his client, he showed them there and chose over the 40 types of headsets, bone conduction, noise reduction, and all of that. And she was able to, and we didn't even know that she has hearing impairment. And then she said, this works perfectly for me. And then on her way back to the States, for example, she said, after she came back, she sent us an email saying, this is the first time that she was able to listen fully into a video using the particular device that we have given her through the Accessibility Center. So we address the same issues on mobility, the same issues on vision impairment. Hopefully we can go to other areas of impairment. Right now, the Accessibility Center is focusing on those three because we see exactly the issues and challenges of our persons of those kinds of disabilities are facing. And we will continue to enhance that. And we will, as we said, we will continue to leverage technology. And we're a technology company. We will continue to leverage technology to address precisely those challenges and problems.
Thank you, Lito. Another question, this is from Janice Maghinay to all panelists. Are there incentives available to companies if they employ PWDs, such as tax incentives, perhaps from BIR or other incentives in the respective LGU?
Well, I don't know the answer, if there are any incentives. I'm not aware of any, to be honest, but I know that there is a strong recommendation to employ at least 1% of our employees as PWDs. I don't know, Marivic, are you aware?
Also not familiar. I'm not also familiar of any incentives.
I'll answer that question. I'll share the actual law, but there in the gender and diversity, there's actually a budget for all LGU to allot 5% for gender and development programs. So this is actually a budget that even MAP can tap, that we can do projects and pitch to government so we can have more gender and diversity programs. So we can meet on this after the webinar. Do we have additional questions from Facebook? The other questions are more administrative, such as the copy of the slides for those who participated. Okay, if there are no more questions, we would like to thank our speakers for today, Junie, Marivic, and Lito, for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. This has been a very good presentation and discussion on gender and diversity and inclusion on our MAP webinar. We discussed primarily gender, women, and PWDs, but as presented also earlier by Francis, we will also tackle different topics such as culture, race, interfaith, and intergeneration as areas in diversity and inclusion. So should you have any more questions, please ask your questions to our MAP Secretariat, and you may also join our MAP Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So thank you very much once again, and we look forward to having you in the MAP webinar series. Happy Friday to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
And thank you to all who followed us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Lito. Yeah. Junie.
Bye,
Marivic.
Lito, Francis.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Donna,
everyone.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Arnold, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Have a nice
Bye.
weekend. Keep well.
Happy weekend.
Bye-bye.